What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. My internet is really, really bad right now, so if you're not hearing this, I'm really just talking to myself. But joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. How was your weekend?
Pretty good. We're starting to get a lot of really nice weather day after day. Sunshine, 10 degrees Celsius or better. Can't really complain about that. Coming down to the wire here in the NHL, I just mentioned on Twitter, this is the last monster slate of the season. I think Thursday is a 10-gamer, which is big but not excessive. There's like 14 games on Saturday or something, but 6 or 7 of them are in the afternoon or early evening. So that's probably only going to be like a 6 or 7 game slate or something. So this is like the last real big slate of the season. Lots to break down, some key injury news. A few big names aren't going to be playing here tonight. But one thing that stacks, like just real quick, one thing that really stuck out to me looking across our top stacks, and we'll talk about them as we go through the day. Like, yes, there's going to be ownership on Colorado. There's always ownership on Colorado, especially at the price they are with Mikko Rantanen out. We'll get to that. But there are a few high-priced lines, but really nothing's projecting that highly for ownership. Like you expect that on a 13-game slate, but sometimes, you have Colorado against Columbus or Edmonton's at home to Anaheim or something like that, and a line's going to be like 20 or 25%. It's like, no, there's nothing like that. Single entries will be higher, but I think in some of the MME contests, you might not see a line combination outside of Colorado higher than 10%. So I like those kinds of slates because you can go just about anywhere you want, and there's lots to break down with 26 teams going here.
Yeah, we're here a little early because school's back in session. Got to pick up the little fella. Otherwise, he gets mad. Thursday, he'll be home. But today, got to start a little early. Thursday, we'll be here 2 p.m. Eastern. Let's get into this slate. We're going to start off with Carolina Hurricanes with a 2.8 total. Heading into Boston, the Bruins have a 2.7. There is no ownership in this game. Not really surprising. It's 5.5 total. It's a 13-game slate. There really isn't much I'm super interested in here. Carolina 1's very expensive, $22,300 on the road with a 2.8 total. That's probably going to be a pass for me. They'll probably see a fair bit of that Marchand Coyle Geeky line, which actually in a pretty Marchand and Geeky have a good sample together. So the only line of interest for me would be Pastrnak, Zacha, and Heinen, especially if they go into that Kuznetsov matchup. I mean, they've been okay in a small sample for a Kuznetsov line. So I don't even think I would be prioritizing Boston at all in single entry. This is mostly an MME type game or a fade type game. Honestly, like 22-3 for Carolina 1 seems like a fade spot. If you get a little bit in MME, that's fine. But the one line I would be interested in for MME would be Boston 1, the Pastrnak line.
Yeah, single entry, I don't really have interest in this game. 5.5 total, 2.8 and 2.7 on either side. It is what it is. Carolina 1 is really, really expensive. And as we mentioned, I think it was on Saturday's show, when Gensel first got there, they were getting a lot of ice time, like 20 to 22 minutes for like the first 3, 4, 5 games, something like that. Over the last like 7, 8 games, it's been closer to like that 17 to 19 range that you see with Dallas. Shout out to Dallas Stars. And at 22 and change, it's just too much to pay for a line that might only play 17 or 18 minutes here tonight. So I think like Kuznetsov, Teravainen, and Necas is fine as a filler, but it's not something I'm targeting. And it's the same thing on the Boston side. Like I think that Pastrnak, Heinen, and Zacha line has been good, like just since March 1st, 3.1 expected goals for. Dan Heinen has a lot of really good playmaking metrics, or playmaking numbers, I should say, backing up his play this season. But it's a low total. There's too many other really good spots to go to. If you want to get low ownership, this is going to be one place to do it. But I think in a single entry or 3 max format, again, it's one of those, like if you want a one-off, David Pastrnak, that's always in play if you want to one-off Martin Nate. It's like he's cheap enough where it's fine. Same thing with Svechnikov, but like stacking, just the complete pass for me.
Yeah. I mean, so if this was like a much shorter slate, then we had more to talk about, but 5.5 total, huge slate. Not super interesting. I was going to say the Ottawa Panthers. The Ottawa Senators with a 2.4 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 3.6. This game's a bit more interesting. Timmy Stützle is still out. It's kind of important. As he's one of their best offensive players, probably one of their better two-way players. Tarasenko's still up with Barkov and Reinhart. Tkachuk, Bennett, Cousins. Ottawa going Tkachuk, Pinto, Batherson, and Giroux, Grieg, Joseph. So I was looking at the numbers with Tarasenko, with Barkov and Reinhart, and like their expected goals against aren't that bad for a Tarasenko line, but their actual goals against are pretty bad. It's almost like 4 actual goals against per 60. And I'm wondering, how we talk about how someone like Panarin breaks the expected goals model. I wonder if Tarasenko defensively inversely messes up the expected goal model. But regardless of my idiotic argument there, with Tarasenko up on the top line, they are way worse defensively than when it's Verhaeghe or Evan Rodriguez or anyone really up there. I don't really want to play Ottawa 1. They have a 2.4 total on the road, and they're more expensive than Florida 1. So it's like, I get if you want to play them. They're not something I'm prioritizing in single entry or 3 max or anything like that. In 20 max or 47 max, whatever the $15 is now, if you happen to get a couple, I think it's fine because they take a ton of penalties. Florida does. And Tarasenko, again, isn't great defensively. So I don't mind Ottawa 1 in MME. It is very, very hard to prioritize them in single entry, which I will not be doing. My interest lies on the Florida side. Just a quick on Ottawa 2. There really isn't a necessary, Tampa's expensive and Carolina 1 is expensive, but we're not getting like 25,000 Colorado tonight. We're not getting 25,000 Edmonton tonight. So stacking a $10,100 line truly isn't super necessary. If you want to do like a Grieg, Giroux, cheap 2-man or Grieg, Joseph, it's fine if you're trying to power play stack. I don't think there is a true need to full stack a line that cheap here tonight. My interest is on the Florida side. I think the Florida top line is in a fine spot. Like that Pinto, Tkachuk, Batherson line is pretty low vent on both ends of the ice. They just play at a slow pace, but Barkov, Tarasenko, Reinhart play at a pretty high pace. I think they can push the pace. They're fully correlated on the power play. They're $300 cheaper than the Ottawa 1. So I do like Florida 1 here. Florida 2 is where it gets weird, right? Because I don't really want a full stack of Tkachuk, Bennett, Cousins line, but they're only 14,500, and they're going to go into that Grieg, Giroux, Joseph line, which, nothing to worry about there. Like if you're looking to get in Tampa Bay or something like that, you might be able to squeeze them in. I don't particularly love full stacking. I think a Tkachuk 1-off is fine. I think a Bennett, Tkachuk 2-man is fine. I just don't particularly love Nick Cousins, despite their numbers being very, very good together. So it is a Florida 1 game for me. I prefer or a Florida 1 game for me. Tkachuk 1-off is fine. Ottawa 1 is fine in MME. I think you can 1-off Brady Tkachuk as well, but Florida 1.
Yeah, it's both top lines for me in this game. I'm not interested in the second lines here. Like, I'm with you. 26 teams on the slate. If my single entry has Nick Cousins in it, like, that's a bigger cry for help than playing Casey Cizikas. I don't know what else to say. Honestly, I think Ottawa 2 could actually be fun. Like, really, Grieg's a good player. The problem is for the last 2 months, he's been stuck in the bottom 6 playing with AHLers. Like, that's just basically since Shane Pinto returned. It's just completely screwed Grieg's numbers on the year. He's still putting up pretty good defensive numbers. It's both top lines for me. I don't mind Florida 1 year for a couple reasons. One, they're perfectly correlated at 19K, and a perfectly correlated line at home for 19K with a 3.6 total, which is, I think, the third highest on the slate. It's hard not to say no. It's hard to pass on that. Here's the thing is, if you look at Barkov and Tarasenko together and then Barkov away from Tarasenko, the defensive numbers aren't a whole lot different. They are a little bit worse with Tarasenko, but it's nothing like cratering Barkov's defensive numbers aside. The offensive numbers are worse, right? The only reason they're scoring is because they're shooting like 15%. Like, I that's just obscenely high for a 5-on-5 line. Even like 11% would be pretty high, like amongst the elite over the course of a full season. And 11% is the difference between scoring 4 goals per 60 or 3 goals per 60. And that is a massive, massive chasm compared to what they're doing right now. I don't wonder if they're not playing a little bit more safe at 5-on-5 because they know they have to cover for Tarasenko's defensive issues, right? Like, they're not taking as many chances offensively because they can't rely on him to kind of back it up in the defensive zone. I don't mind Florida 1 year because, like you said, there's not a terrible amount of ownership coming in on them. Top Stacks has them at 6%, top 2 stack percentage of 10%. So they're perfectly fine. Ottawa's penalty kill, really not that great. They're above average by minor penalties taken per game. Like, everything's lining up fine for Florida 1. No issue using them here tonight. I honestly don't wonder if it's not a bad night to use Ottawa, though. There's absolutely no ownership coming in on them. 1.5% against a 7.1% top 2 stack percentage. They're only $300 more expensive than Florida. You get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. You mentioned the time shorthanded for Florida. These guys have to figure out what they're going to do come playoff time because they're at 5.9 minor penalties taken per game over the last 6 weeks. The league average is 3.3. Like, these guys are taking like 75% more penalties than the league average. It is absolutely obscene. Just the parade to the penalty box every single Florida Panthers game is. Ottawa's power play has struggled for most of the season. It's turned around a little bit of late. Mostly it's just Chicken firing from the point, and the shots are finally starting to go in. But if these guys get like 5, 6, 7 power plays or something like that, I don't mind taking a stab on Ottawa 1 here. Both top lines are in consideration for me in any format. I would probably still lean Florida. I do have them rated better personally. They do have the higher top 2 stack percentage for stochastic. I just don't wonder, like, even if I'm 3 maxing, I might be considering Ottawa pretty heavily here. Like, both Aaron Ekblad and Oliver Ekman-Larsson are out for the Panthers, and they're missing Carter Verhaeghe, and they're missing a ton of and they're taking a ton of penalties, and they have Tarasenko on the top line. Like, there are just a lot of reasons why I kind of like Ottawa here tonight. It's only a 2.4 total, but you got to figure, like, if they come through with 3 goals, it's not going to be, Mark Pastelik and Boris Kachuk, filling the net. I do have Florida higher, but I kind of like Ottawa here as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd full stack in single entry. I'm perfectly fine with a Brady one-off there. Washington Capitals with a 2.8 total heading into Detroit. The Wings have a 3.2. This is one of the games with playoff implications. Detroit's in the second wildcard spot, 77 game played, 84 points. Washington, same amount of games played, 83 points. Anything but a 3-point game here would be nice. So we're destined for overtime here. We don't have confirmation on Washington lines. I know some lineup sites have Ovechkin, Strome, Wilson, and then McMichael, Protas, Miroshnichenko, but he's out. Protas was down on the third line, or I don't know. Like, they mixed up in game. They never really ran rushes in practice. TJ Oshie's a game time decision. Nicholas Aube-Kubel is going to be in the lineup. We just don't know what the lines are going to be. It's kind of important for the Detroit side, right? If it's McMichael, Ovechkin, Wilson, I would have some interest in Detroit despite these idiotic lines. Like, Larkin and Raymond have played well together, so I'd have interest there. But like Strome, Ovechkin, X, right? Ovechkin's best numbers this season have been with Strome at both ends of the ice. So that would kind of take the interest away from Detroit a little bit here. I mean, they are cheap enough where it's like it doesn't really matter. Like, I don't think so, but 13,600. It's kind of it's kind of fillery, you know what I mean? And that's the issue. And that's why they're coming in with 3x their top 2 stack percentage. Kane to bring Cat Confer. Like, I don't on like a slate with 26 teams. I want to stack JT Confer. Not particularly. So, like, as much as this is an important game for actual playoff implications, I don't particularly love it from a DFS standpoint. Now, if we get a line like Ovechkin, Strome, Wilson fully correlated against the Wings, yeah, then I'll be interested because Dylan Strome and Ovechkin, like I said, have very good numbers together. If it's not Wilson, if it's McMichael, if it's, it depends who's up there, but like I would be interested in Ovechkin Strome line against this Detroit team. So, it depends what Washington does, and that makes my interest in Detroit a little bit iffy, but they're cheap enough where Larkin and Raymond would be fine for me.
I don't have any interest in this game. Not from a stacking perspective. This is Carolina, Boston all over again. Don't have any interest. Like Larkin, Raymond, and Perron have been absolutely terrible this season. 1.7 expected goals for 1.7 expected goals for per 60 minutes and almost 200 minutes together. 2.4 against. 2.1 actual goals for. Off the top of my head, that's about 25% worse than the league average. This is the Detroit top line. 25% worse than the league average offensively. 3.7 actual goals against. They're just been getting their brains beat in. Now, they won one game. Like, congratulations. Let's see if you can win 2. I don't have any interest in stacking that. Don't have any interest in JT Confer, as you mentioned. On the Washington side, don't really know what the lines are going to be. One off Ovechkin, perfectly fine. One off Lucas Raymond because he's so cheap on DK. I think he's like 4K. Perfectly fine. One off, like, I guess Dylan Strome would be okay. The only interest I have in really stacking is like a 2-man of like Milano and Pacioretty. Like, they have actually been good together. 2.6 expected goals, 3.1 actual goals per 60 minutes and 150 minutes together. Some of that's with Dylan Strome. Everybody's got their best numbers with Dylan Strome because this isn't a very good team. The totals aren't that high. I think if any team gets there, it's going to be on the power play. So I'd focus on the power play guys. Like I said, like Raymond, like Ovechkin, like Strome, certainly Dylan Larkin, but I'm not stacking anyone.
There you go. Philadelphia Flyers, they 3.1 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens have a 2.8. This is an important game for the Flyers. If they lose, they're probably out. Not mathematically, but it gets really iffy. They would need a ton of help. I want to get behind the Flyers here because they're cheap and they're in a good matchup. It's just like their power play is just bad. They've been playing some pretty poopers hockey recently, so like I'm kind of treating the Flyers like Cliffy's treating the Wings Capitals game. I don't think I'm going to full stack anything. I think a Connect Me one-off is in play. It's Tippett one-off, a Joel Farabee one-off. I don't think I would really want to full stack anything from the Flyers in this game, especially if they get off to a slow start. God knows what Torts is going to do to the line. So one-offs are fine. My interest lies on the Montreal side, 2.8 total. Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky is what I'm interested in. They're fully correlated. Their power play has been decent. Like, Philly's penalty kill hasn't been the penalty kill it was earlier in the season. So, Montreal won for me. They're coming in a tiny bit negatively leveraged, but at 16-6, it's perfectly fine. I have no faith in the Flyers goaltending. So this is a Montreal 1 game for me.
Yeah, I think your point about Tortorella is the main one. Like, he's a guy that changes lines often in what is functionally a must-win game here for Philly. If they're down 1-0 in the second period or something, none of these lines are staying together. That's kind of the problem with stacking anything, is like, unless they have like a multi-goal lead halfway through the game, I don't think these lines are staying together. Of these lines that we have, I think I would have the most interest in Lawton and Konechny. Mainly because Montreal on the power play, they give up quite a bit. They give up a lot of chances. They're really risky with their passes. They give up a lot of shorthanded goals against. Now, you don't stack players for shorthanded goals against, but Konechny and Lawton have been phenomenal on the penalty kill for Philly, basically for 2 years now. So I don't mind like a two-man of like Konechny and Lawton or something like that, but that's about it. It is the Montreal side that I have more interest in. I wrote up Cole Caulfield in the picks article today. Like, he was a career over 14% shooter coming into the season. He's shooting 8.1% this year, and he's still probably going to score 25 goals. Like, if he even shot like 12%, he'd be between 35 and 40 goals right now. Like, it's been a pretty fine line for him between a good and a great season. The line has been playing exceptionally well their last 4 weeks. 3.2 expected goals for, 2.8 against, 4.3 actual goals for per 60 minutes, perfectly correlated on the power play. You know, you mentioned it with Philly's penalty kill. It's just been on a slide basically the second half of the season. And the thing is like, it's not all goaltending. Like, at 5-on-5, you could probably chalk a fair bit of it up to their goaltenders. On the penalty kill, that's not been the case. 21st by shots against on the penalty kill over the last 6 weeks. Like, this was a team that was top 5 for like 40 games. Penalty kill's getting worse. Goaltending's been atrocious. Like, this is like Carolina in November type goaltending that they've been getting. Montreal's still playing the top guys like 20 minutes a game. Suzuki sometimes up to 22. As a full stack, I like Montreal one best in this game. I don't mind like a Konechny one-off or a Konechny Lawton two-man or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, like, if the Flyers are going to win, they need Konechny to start playing. Before we move on, we have a $25 super chat from Mark. Thank you very much. Hey, guys, been a pretty atrocious hockey DFS season for me, but had a big rebound this week, including a second place on the DK15 contest last night. Thanks for all the information and always entertaining shows. #respect. Congratulations to you. I don't know if you're a single entry player or an MME player, but if you are a single entry player, like I always say, it is weeks of sheer boredom and moments of true terror. And you really only need like one or two of those to turn a bad season into a profitable one. That's all we're really looking for, is profit on the season. And congrats to you. Appreciate you tuning in and you being able to turn it around.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We really do appreciate the super chats. Those certainly help. Glad to be here to infotain, as some people might say. Just glad to hear that you've been able to turn around your season. It's never too late. There's still over a week left, and then we have playoffs. Let's hope you can keep that good mojo rolling.
Always entertaining shows. You know what someone said to me in DMs the other day? They said our show's like a mullet. You're the business in the front and I'm the party in the back. I thought
that's pretty fair assessment, I think.
Yeah. I mean, getting compared to mullets, but what can you do?
Worse. Yeah, I've had worse.
Yeah, that is true. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.3 total heading into New Jersey. The Devils have a 3.2 total. Jack Hughes out tonight. They ran lines in practice, but after practice, head coach Travis Green said they're going to be going with pairs. Holla and Timo, Nico and Bratt, and then Nosek and Palat. And then depending how they are playing, they're going to rotate wingers in with them. That's very annoying for DFS. It's a pretty decent matchup too. I mean, like, Hughes being out obviously hurts a lot, but it makes all those pairs fairly palatable. I butchered that word, but price-wise, I'm not even going to attempt the second attempt. I don't mind Hischier and Bratt here, especially because they're at home. Probably going to go out against Matthews, Bertuzzi, Domi, and they're back-to-back on the road. And Matthews, Bertuzzi, Domi, very good offensively. Max Domi, bad defensively. So I don't mind Hischier, Bratt, two-man there. I guess you can add in like a Luke Hughes to make it a little three-man power play stack there. I do worry that the power play is going to be affected pretty heavily without Jack Hughes. We'll see who fills in that fourth spot. If I had to guess, it would not be your boy Alex Holtz, but maybe Dawson Mercer.
It's going to be Mercer.
We'll see. I don't mind. What?
It's going to be Mercer. He was there this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't mind Hischier, Bratt as a two-man. Like Timo, Timo one-off is fine, but I guess you could power play stack across some lines. But if I had to do anything on the Devil side, it would be a Hischier, Bratt two-man and add on to it. On the Toronto side, I don't particularly want to play Tavares, Marner, McMahon, so that it would be down to Matthews, Bertuzzi, Domi. Back-to-back on the road, 26 teams on this slate. The one thing I would say, they're getting positive leverage and they're not overly expensive. I think it's another instance where you can one-off Matthews. You can pair him with Domi, do whatever you need to do. Like the Devils' penalty kill is actually very good, so you don't have to worry about power play stacking. So you could, in theory, just full stack Toronto 1. But I think this is more of like a Matthews one-off night for me than Hischier, Bratt on the Devils side.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton of interest in the Devils here, and it's for the power play reasons that you mentioned. We went through this when Hughes had that injury back in January, early February. The power play just tanked, and it wasn't just bad shooting percentages. They couldn't create shots. Like Jack Hughes, he's one of the best players in the world on entries. Like he can get the puck into the zone and get things set up, and that is so important to a power play. Jesper Bratt can do it. He's very good at it. But after that, there really isn't anyone else. So it's a lot to put on Jesper Bratt to be like, hey, man, you have to set up all the power plays now. And the fact that they're going to be rotating, that they said that they're going to be rotating players. Like Alex Holtz is on the second line, but he's not going to play more than 11 minutes, right? So Dawson Mercer is going to be on the second line by the middle of the second period. So, a Bratt one-off I think is fine, like a Mercer one-off, because Mercer I think is only $3K on DraftKings. He's probably, he's on the third line, but he's probably going to end up playing 17 or 18 minutes or something like that. I think a Mercer one-off is perfectly fine. I'm not stacking anything from New Jersey. I honestly have more interest in the Toronto side here. Outside of teams playing against Anaheim or San Jose, Toronto has the highest road total here on the board tonight. And yes, it's back-to-back on the road. They still have a 3.3 total in their favor. As much as I want to slag the Leafs, eventually you kind of have to believe in the top line. That top line's up to 110 minutes now, which is about 10 full games worth of ice time, 10, 11 games. 89 shot attempts, 4.9 expected goals, 45 shots per 60 minutes. It is absolutely absurd, the amount of offense that they're putting up. One thing that is a problem is that New Jersey, independent of Jack Hughes, has a great penalty kill, and that's even with shoddy goaltending. But you only have Matthews on the top power play unit anyway, and this line is only 18,100 coming in with positive leverage. I'm not worried about any matchups on the New Jersey side. We went through this with Hischier, Bratt, and Platt. Remember when they were great offensively, but we're giving up a ton defensively? It's going to be the same thing again here tonight, probably. I have more interest in Toronto 1 than I do in anything on the New Jersey side as a stack. They've been really, really good. At some point, you just got to start believing in them. I'm starting to a little bit. I feel like an idiot saying I believe in the Toronto Maple Leafs, considering the last 55 years of hockey from them, but they've been really, really good. And I'm not worried about anything defensively from the New Jersey side. So Toronto 1, and then maybe some one-offs from the Devils.
Yeah, I was forced into believing in them yesterday because it was a 2-game slate and I played them and they did nothing. But like, it's just one game. I don't mind going back to like Domi is so cheap anyway. You know, I mean, it's not like it's a $22,000 line, so kind of agree there. New York Rangers with a 2.9 total heading into Long Island. That just miserable. The Islanders have a 2.7 total. There is not a line with projected ownership over 1% in this game. Like the Islanders lines are just stupid. I don't know what else to call them. They're just idiotic. I like, and the way that they match at home, right? You're going to see JG Pageau go out against Mika Zibanejad, and then you're going to have like Horvat, Barzal, Cizikas go out against Trocheck Panarin, and then, you know, Nelson, Palmieri, Holmstrom go out against Wember, Kakko, Cooley. Like, there's nothing really there that goes, yeah, I want to play them in single entry. If I had to play anything, it would be some sort of Rangers power play stack. But I don't even think that is something I want to do on a 13-game slate. I think like a one-off Mika is fine. He's shooting a lot more now. He's involved on the power play. One-off Panarin if you have an expensive spot left. But like, other than that, like, this game really doesn't interest me.
Yeah, I don't have any interest in the Islanders, that's for sure. I was looking at the numbers with Cizikas and Barzal, 2.1 expected goals, 2.4 actual goals per 60 minutes. Like, Patrick Waugh changed these lines to the point where Matthew Barzal is now a below average offensive player. Like, that is just sick. You know, I think they've won 4 games in a row and they're fighting for a playoff spot. So like, I get it from a real life perspective. It's just terrible from a DFS perspective. I don't have any interest in stacking anything on the Islanders side. On the Rangers side, I think there are 2 playable lines. You know, that Pageau line has been pretty good defensively. So maybe you want to avoid the super expensive Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere. Like, the thing with that expensive Rangers line is, like, if you're going to play a $21,000 or $22,000 line tonight, like, just go play Tampa, go play Minnesota. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think there are other lines I'd rather play. The Rangers top line is a bit of a different story. Jack Roslovic back after getting healthy scratch. They're only 15,900, so they're a mid-price line. They're going to see that Barzal line, which has not been good. They're going to see some of that Brock Nelson, Holmstrom. Like, Holmstrom just makes every line worse, so I'm not worried about that line either. I think the matchups are fine for Kreider, Zibanejad, and Roslovic. And the big thing about Scratch and Roslovic was, like, the line's just not been good defensively, right? 2.5 expected goals against, 3 actual goals against per 60 minutes. It's not horrific, but for a team that's, you know, marching hopefully towards a Stanley Cup final appearance, they need a little bit better. And I think that was just, you know, to kind of get him kickstarted. I think for a mid-price stack, I don't mind Kreider's Zibanejad, Roslovic here, especially where you get 2 out of 3 on the power play and the Islanders penalty kill is still terrible. Like, I just think it's a better matchup for the Rangers top line. I'm not prioritizing them. If I was 20 maxing them, maybe I'd have 1, you know, maybe 2, depending on what my crunches look like. Single entry 3 max, no, but I do think there's interest, you know, if you're playing 20 lineups or something like that.
Yeah. If this wasn't the Rangers, I had my "this game sucks" stamp ready to go, but they're my boys, so can't stamp them. Columbus Blue Jackets, they suck. With a 2.5 total heading into Tampa, the Lightning have a 4.1. Jenner obviously still out. They're going Nylander, Gaudreau, Voronkov, Marchenko, Sillinger, Texier. Then who cares? So Tampa has the highest total on the night, 4.1. Their top line, Kucherov, Point, Duclair, 22,100, 19.5% top 2 stack, 9.2% projected ownership. One of the highest positive leverage lines on the night. I really, really like them. The one issue that I do have is Duclair only plays like 13 minutes, 14 tops. So that does concern me a little bit, especially when I'm paying that much to get, you know, But the thing is like it's a really, really good matchup. So if he scores or hits the score sheet, gets like an assist, 2 shots on goal and a block or whatever, he's not going to hurt you. You could, leave off Duclair and add in a Stamkos, make it a power play stack, do what you need to do there. I'm fine with full Tampa 1. Stamkos 1-off is fine. Like, Cirelli, Hagel, Stamkos, like, I'd rather, at 8.1% ownership, I probably would rather go play the Rangers top line there. I think you can add in Stamkos to a stack or something like that. But Tampa 1 for me. On the Columbus side, it would be that top line. It's just like I don't have too much interest in prioritizing them in 1 to 3 tonight.
Yeah, I'm not super big on Columbus here. Tampa's actually been getting better defensively, and it's not just Vasilevsky having good games. Like, their expected goals against in the last 6 weeks at 5-on-5 is borderline top 10 in the league. They have been improving defensively for almost a couple months now. The Columbus top line has been fine offensively, but it's not to the point where I'm like, if I need a filler, I'm going to go play these guys. Like, they're in play as a filler because the Nylander, Voronkov, Gaudreau line is only 12,900, coming with 1.7% ownership. There's not a lot of ownership. Top stack isn't that high, but you don't get a lot of high top 2 stack percentages for a line under 13K on DraftKings. But I think they're fine. They're just not something that I'm targeting specifically. I like the Tampa side way more, obviously. A lot of people will. I wrote about them in the picks article. They're up over 100 minutes now together, that entire top line with Duclair. They're 107 minutes actually at 5-on-5. 3.9 expected goals, 5.1 actual goals per 60 minutes. In the 13 games with Duclair, Kucherov has 30 points. 30 points in 13 games. That's a good season for some third liners. Braden Point has 11 goals in his last 12 games. He missed 1 game in that span. And Duclair has 11 points in 13 games. I agree with you. Like, maybe you don't necessarily have to play Duclair. Like, if you're making a 3-2-1 lineup, I think making just Point and Kucherov your 2 is perfectly fine. But I do like the entire line here. Like, the Columbus top line has been a train wreck defensively. With Boone Jenner, 3.4 expected goals against. Without Boone Jenner, 3.6 expected goals against. The actual goals against are like between 4.5 and 5 with and without Boone Jenner. Like, whether he's there or not, it hasn't mattered. They're just awful. And the penalty kill has been getting worse. That was the one thing that was kind of saving Columbus, a couple months ago. The last 6 weeks, it's basically been bottom 10 in the league. I think this is a great matchup for Tampa Bay here tonight. I really, really like Tampa 1. I agree with you. I think Stamkos makes a fun 1-off here tonight. I don't think he's the player that he was years ago. He still has 22 points in his last 15 games, averaging almost 4 shots per game with 12 goals. Like, he can still get it done, especially against a team like Columbus. But as a full stack, I prefer Tampa 1 over anything by a wide margin here tonight. And they're my number 2 line on the entire slate.
Yeah. I agree. Buffalo Sabres with a 2.5 total heading into Dallas. The Stars have a 3.6. I actually like this game, and there's almost no ownership on it, which was a little bit interesting. Is Sagan back?
Yeah, they said the same lines as.
That makes this game pretty spicy.
Yeah, no, they just said the same lines as Sunday, and Sagan played on Sunday, so I'm assuming he's in. Beautiful.
So the way like Dallas kind of matches at home, they kind of just go 1-1, 2-2, 3-3. 2 will see 3, 3 will see 2 sometimes, but you'll see 1-1. For them, like, they don't really hard match, but like there isn't really a matchup on Buffalo that is concerning. Thompson, Tuck, Peterka, very, very high event, very bad defensively. 5-on-5. Cousins, Quinn, Benson, not great defensively as you would imagine. Quinn and Benson are just little kids. And then Krebs, Skinner, Greenway, they've been okay, but nothing to be scared of. I don't love Dallas 1, but they're coming in at 1.4% projected ownership at 18.5. Like, they're playable, but like I just haven't played them this season. If you want to play them, go ahead. But like I'm not super interested in them. My interest lies Johnston, Ben, Stankoven, or Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, depending on your build. If you need something a little bit cheaper, I'd go Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment. If you could go either line, I would prefer Johnston, Ben, Stankoven, just the way my brain works. So I think there's 3 playable Dallas lines. I think Dallas 1 would be the third in my book. I'd probably go Johnston, Ben, Stankoven, then Duchesne line, then the Hintz line. The Buffalo top line's a bit interesting. The one thing that is concerning is Dallas's goaltending has gotten a lot better recently, and their defensive pairs are just so good. So, like, as good as Thompson, Tuck, and Peterka have been offensively, this is just not the matchup, especially when they're the most expensive line in the game. I think I'd rather just go play Ottawa 1, if we're being honest. So I'm fine with Buffalo 1 and MME if they get into your crunches, but I'm not going to go out of my way to stack them. This is, Dallas game for me.
Yeah, Dallas, like getting Chris Tanev really made a big difference for this team because now you have 2 defensive pairs that are just completely elite. Like honestly, Lindell and Tanev have been extremely good together. Obviously, Harley and Heiskanen as well. Like since the trade deadline, Dallas has the 2nd lowest expected goals against rate in the league, 5th lowest shots against, and like 6th lowest goals against. Like they've been allowing fewer goals than like Winnipeg. That it's just a great defensive team that's finally starting to get the goaltending that they need. That's so I'm out on Buffalo in single entry 3 max, that type of stuff. You want to play Buffalo 1 in 20 max or 150, I think that's fine because the offense has been good. 3.2 expected goals, 5.9 actual goals per 60. They're all getting heavy minutes as well, like 19 to 21 minutes. Perfectly correlated on the power play. So like there are reasons to play them. I just don't think this is a great matchup. Like if it was a 7-game slate, then I'd kind of be considering like with 26 teams, I don't think you have to force it. 20 max 150, I'd be considering more heavily. I wrote up Wyatt Johnston in the picks article. 13 goals and 25 points in 20 games since Logan Stankoven was called up. 3.5 shots per game, 6 multi-point games in that span. And the line is absurd. 40.6 shots, 4.3 expected goals, 4.6 actual goals per 60 minutes as a trio. That's what's going up against the Buffalo 2nd and 3rd lines. The defense has gotten a lot worse for the Sabres over the last 6 weeks, like bottom 5 by expected goals against. If Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen doesn't have like a top 5 or top 6 performance of the season here tonight, the goals could be flying in for Dallas. I really, really like the Stankoven line here. If you want to play the Marchment Duchesne Sagan line instead, that's perfectly fine. Stankoven's coming in with positive leverage. They have more than double the top 2 stack percentage of that Duchesne line. So it's the Johnson, Ben, Stankoven line for me. And I think Buffalo 1 is in play, but that's more for like 20 max and higher stuff.
Yep. I agree. I mean, if you can't afford Wyatt Johnston line, I think the Duchesne line perfectly fine here. Winnipeg Jets with a 2.8 total heading into Nashville. The Predators also have a 2.8 total. Don't have a ton of interest in the Preds here tonight. It's just not a great matchup. I will say the one spot where you attack Winnipeg is on the penalty kill, and the top line's fully correlated, and they have positive leverage. They are 19-7, which is a little expensive, but they are home. I don't think it's a single entry thing for me. I think if I was, even 10 maxing or something like that, 20 max, I'll have 1 or 2. Just from being fully correlated on the power play, and Ryan O'Reilly is just a power play goal machine, apparently. So I'm fine with Nashville 1, the more lineups you have. I mean, a couple of depth spots switched, but, it's another day that ends in Y for the Predators. So I don't really have a ton of interest in the depth. On the Winnipeg side, Scheifele, Ehlers, Velarde is 16,100 with positive leverage. I'm not saying run out and play them, but at that price, I am interested. you get 2 of the 3 on the top power play. Nashville's penalty kill is as good as Saros is. If he's a little bit off, I think they can get a goal or two. It is a 2.8 road total. It's not nothing. So, you're getting a $3,600 discount from Nashville 1 there. So I think in this game, Winnipeg 1 is my favorite. If you want to go to Winnipeg 2, it's all right, but for just find $500 more and play Winnipeg 1.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of interest in single entry 3 max. It's only 5.5 total. It's not that great. The Nashville top line has been legitimately great, basically since the end of February. I was looking just the last 4 weeks. 3.9 expected goals, 4.2 actual goals per 60 minutes. Forsberg has 32 points in his last 20 games, averaging 5 shots per game. He's just been absolutely otherworldly. The depth lines have been good as well, but Winnipeg's still a very good defensive team. The top line hasn't been that great defensively. That's the one thing I will say. The Scheifele line, 2.8 expected goals against, but you still have Connor Hellebuck behind them. So I'm kind of with you. If I was playing even 10 lineups, I might have one Nashville. If I was playing 20 lineups, I almost certainly have one. They're still in consideration for me for single entry because they still have a 5.5% top 2 stack. They're still 1.3% ownership. But I'd probably rather just go play Florida at double or triple the ownership or something like that. And even triple the ownership would only be 5, 6, 7%. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be anything extreme. I still don't mind Nashville 1. It is more because they're perfectly correlated on the power play, and Winnipeg's penalty kill it's just not been that great. It's been the best you can say about it is that at times they've been average. And if that's the best that it gets, Nashville could sneak 1 power play goal. Don't have a lot of interest in stacking them, though. Winnipeg side, it's kind of the same thing. I don't mind playing the top line, Ehlers, Velarde, Scheifele, because they are only $16K. But that'd be another thing where it would be more if I was playing 20 max 150. Because there are so many teams, there are a lot of lines in that price range today. Obviously, you got Montreal 1, you got Toronto 1, who's only $1,500 more or $2,000 more expensive. We'll get to Los Angeles in a second. We talked about the Rangers top line earlier. There are just other lines kind of in that price range I'd rather play in a single entry. It's more of a 20 max, 150 max type thing for me.
Yeah. I agree there. UFC 300 is this week, by the way, and they put out a pretty ridiculously good card. I will have a quick picks video up on my Twitter. I am going to hopefully get it done Thursday. I wanted to try to do it on Wednesday, which is tomorrow. It's not possible. My little fella has an appointment that's an hour away. Won't be home till late. So I will try to get it out as early as possible on Thursday. But stay tuned for that. We have MMA Sims. You want to give it a try. All you have to do is click the old link in the chat, and you can try out the MMA Sims. Let's get to the final 4 games. Minnesota Wild with a 2.8 total heading into Colorado. The Avalanche have a 3.7. Mikko Rantanen is out tonight with a concussion. They are going to be going McKinnon, Lehkonen, Johnny Drouin, Nichushkin, Middlestat, Parisi, and then Colton, Trennan, Duhaime, whatever. Minnesota going Kaprizov, Zuccarello, Rossi, Joe Eriksson, Ekboldi, Joe Hansen. Even with Rantanen out, McKinnon, Lehkonen, Drouin at 19,100 with a 21.1% top 2 stack is getting a ownership share projected at 21.7%. I kind of get it just because their penalty kill, the Wild penalty kill sucks, and they're fully correlated. McKinnon's going to play big old minutes here tonight. I do really like Colorado 1 here. That ownership on a 13-game slate without Rantanen is a bit worrisome, and I'm not really sure what it like. I know McKinnon and Rantanen get broken up from time to time during the regular season, and they always end up back together just because they always play better together. But this line is fully correlated against a poor penalty kill, so I do like Colorado 1 here. Colorado 2 is a bit interesting. I just, they're fine. But this is a game I want to get McKinnon in if I'm going to play Colorado. Like, there's just not a lot going on, so he's going to play his massive minutes. So I would imagine Lehkonen and Drouin play very, very heavy minutes as well. So probably just Colorado 1 for me. The Minnesota side is interesting to me because, like, I can't imagine these lines are going to be anything great defensively. Like, Middlestat and Nichushkin might be okay, but with Zach Parise there at this stage of his career, I don't have a ton of faith in him defensively. The Avs take a bunch of penalties. Their penalty kill is okay. Both lines have 2 guys on the top power play unit. The first line, Zuccarello and Kaprizov. Second line, Joliarek, Boldy. The issue I'm running into is price, right? Rossi, Zuccarello, Kaprizov is $20K. Joliarek, Boldy, Marcus Johansson, 18.3. It's kind of a weird price for a 2.8 road total team. I want Kaprizov, so I would probably do the top line. I think you can leave off Rossi if you wanted to, but he's the cheapest guy on the line, so you might as well just add him in. So it would be both top lines for me, but the price on Minnesota 1's a bit worrisome, and the ownership on Colorado 1's worrisome.
Yeah, I'll start on the Minnesota side. These lines are frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
These particular line combinations have actually played a fair bit since they hired John Hines at the end of November, because this is what they had until they went to that Eriksson, Boldy, Kaprizov line, I think, around the All-Star break, either just before or just after. But the top line, the Eriksson line, the Kaprizov line, in 240 minutes at 5-on-5 under John Hines, 52 shot attempts, 2.1 expected goals for. The Minnesota second line, the Eriksson, Boldy, Marcus Johansson line, 2.2 expected goals for, 2.2 actual goals for in 250 minutes together. These lines just don't do anything. Now, I agree with you. I'd much rather play Rossi, Zuccarello, Kaprizov. Like, if I'm playing Minnesota, it's kind of like playing Colorado. Like, if you play Colorado, you play McKinnon. If you play Minnesota, you play Kirill Kaprizov. They do have good goals numbers. I wonder if Rossi does have some good playmaking and entry numbers and stuff like that. So maybe he's a guy whose potential is there to kind of break expected goals models. But going from 2.1 expected goals to 3.7 actual goals is just a massive, massive gap. Like, they're not creating any offense when they're on the ice. 52 shot attempts is just nothing. That worries me. Now, there's no ownership on them. 0.4%, 5.3 top 2% stack percentage per the top stacks tool. So that's fine. But if I'm going to go play a 20K line with almost no ownership, I'll probably just go play the Panarin line from the Rangers, right? Like, a line that we've actually seen be elite basically all season this year, facing the New York Islanders, or a Minnesota line that has really not been that good, that has only played about 15 to 20 games worth of ice time together in Colorado. Like, that's just kind of the way I look at it. It's like, if I'm going to play a low-owned, super expensive line, probably just going to go play Ottawa. I'm probably just going to go play the Rangers. Like, I'm not going to play Minnesota here. So I'm out on the Wild. I'm in on Colorado. I mentioned Arturi Lehkonen in the picks article. One, I can't believe the price difference between DraftKings and FanDuel. He's 4,500 on DK and he's 6,900 on FanDuel. I feel like they haven't touched Lehkonen's price in months. Like, I don't play on FanDuel anymore, so I couldn't tell you. But a price jump of like 55% from DraftKings is a lot. But what I did mention in the article was that even without Mikko Rantanen, they are creating well offensively. 3.1 expected goals, 3.5 actual goals per 60 minutes. You mentioned the ice time. Lehkonen played 23.5 minutes in the game on Sunday. And as he was moved to the top line in Rantanen's spot. So yes, they're going to play some pretty heavy minutes, and they're perfectly correlated on the power play. And the one spot where Minnesota has just struggled all year, hasn't mattered the coach, hasn't mattered the stretch you've looked at, it's been the penalty kill. Rantanen is a loss, but they do have enough very talented forwards to make up for that loss. And you still have Cale Makar, you still have Valeri Nichushkin, you still have Nathan McKinnon. So I'm not that worried about it. It's Colorado 1 that I do like best in this game. There is a lot of ownership, as you mentioned. 21.7% ownership. It's because they're only 19,100. It's why there's a bunch of 19K lines coming in with absolutely no ownership. It's because it's all going to Colorado. You know, if you just want to turn it into a power play stack, right? Because it is cheap enough where you can just add in Nichushkin and make it a 4-man power play stack, 4-forward power play stack if you want. I think that's perfectly fine. Because if Colorado top line is optimal here tonight, it's probably going to be because of the power play. And Nichushkin has been very good on the power play this year whenever he's been healthy. So Colorado 1, I don't mind turning into a power play stack. I think the Kaprizov line from Minnesota is fine, but there are just other 20K lines that I'd rather play in a single entry.
Yeah, it's just like if they were like 17-8, I'd have a lot more interest, but I don't know. 20K is just weird for them. Los Angeles Kings with a 3.4 total heading into Anaheim. The Ducks have a 2.2. Before I start breaking that game down, we have a $9.99 super chat from Gabagoo. Thank you very much, Gabagoo. I have to say it like that. I am contracted by being born in New Jersey to say it like Gabagoo. The NHL Fantasy Masters degree you guys have schooled me on has been paying like a second job this month. Thanks. Thank you for tuning in and picking up on stuff. We do our best to give you valuable information. It's how you absorb it. You know what I mean? Some people take it some way, some people take it the other way. It's nice that you've had a good stretch in DFS, but thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, appreciate the super chat. Yeah, always happy to help. Like, that's why we're here. We're trying to help people win some money, whether it's DFS, whether they take the advice for DFS and apply it to betting in some way, even though we don't do betting picks. Just glad that we can help, and hopefully we can help here through the end of the season and into the playoffs.
Indeed. Let's talk about these Kings and these Ducks. Be quick on the Ducks. No, thank you. Like, it's just a brutal matchup. I am the biggest. We're two of the biggest Ducks DFS slappies there is. This is not the matchup. Like, even if they're home, it's not the matchup. I really like the Kings here. Surprisingly, they're not getting a ton of ownership, and I think there's 3 playable lines. My preferred line, if I was just full stacking a line, would be Kempe, Kopitar, Byfield at 15.5. I think the no more Arvidsson line also in play at 16K. They're coming right in at their top 2 stack at 3.7% projected. I think you could play the third line if you're trying to get in an expensive Tampa or something like that with Fiala, Dubois, and LaFerriere. I'm just cooked at this point in the season with the names. I think what else you could also do is just power play stack the Kings. You can go like Kempe, Kopitar, Arvidsson, Fiala. Like, it's fine. There are so many ways to attack the Kings here, or attack the Ducks with the Kings here tonight. And they're not overly expensive that you could just full 5-man power play stack. You could do something with the second power play unit if you want. It's not like a true 50-50 split, but the second unit does see time. That would be more in play for me if like the top guys were getting a ton of ownership. There just isn't a lot of ownership here. So I just think you can either go Kings 1. You could just straight up go Kings 1, Kings 2, or Kings 3, or you could power play stack. So depending on what you need, there's a lot of options with the Kings here.
Yeah, I agree with you on Anaheim. Not a lot of interest there. If you're 150 maxing or something, maybe you get some Ducks, but the Kings generally have a great penalty kill. They're 5-on-5. It's turned around a lot under Jim Hiller. And everybody hates the 1-3-1, but that neutral zone trap or whatever you want to call it is working real well, and it's keeping the goals against down, and that's all that matters for them, and it matters a lot for us for DFS too. It is Kings 1. I did write up the Los Angeles top line today in the picks article. Byfield, Kopitar, Kempe, because they have 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit, right? Arvidsson on the top unit, but he's on the second line. Fiala on the top unit, but he's on the third line. I do like Kings 1 here because you get 2 out of the 3. Anaheim, 4.9 minor to penalties taken per game over the last 6 weeks. Again, league average is about 3.3, so they're roughly 50% higher than the league average. This is a team that takes a lot of penalties. The Kings' power play has been on and off this season, but this is certainly a good opportunity to get at least 1 on the board. They're not that expensive, and as you mentioned, there's not a ton of ownership coming in on them. 5.5% for that Kings top line, 4.1% top 2 stack percentage. They're even cheaper than the Arvidsson Moore Danault line. So they're very much in play for me as a mid-price line. There are no matchup concerns on the Duck side. Like, Gudas is back. He's really good. But they just take so many penalties that at 15,500, you don't need 4 goals or something like that for them to pay off, right? Like, even 2 goals with a couple shot bonuses or something, you can probably get close. 3 goals and you're laughing. So Kings 1 for me. I agree. I think there are 3 playable Kings lines, but it's the Kings top line that I'm focusing most on in this game.
Okay. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.8 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken have a 3.2. I know McCann and Dunn were not at skate. I would imagine they're out tonight. Lines currently are Bjorkstrand, Beniers, Burakovsky, Eberle, Schwartz, Wright, Tolvanen, Gore, Tanev. That's what they skated this morning. That's what they practiced with yesterday. So that's probably going to be their lines. I don't have a ton of interest in Arizona here. I think one-off Keller is fine. A one-off Genther is fine. One-off Krause, something like that. Seattle just boring. They just play everyone the same amount of minutes. They're all decent defensively, and they have a good penalty kill. So I don't have a ton of interest in Arizona, despite them having a 2.8 road total, the same as the Wild, the same as the Jets. You know what I mean? So I just don't have a ton of interest there. Seattle side is a bit interesting. Arizona takes a lot of penalties. It's just that Seattle's power play sucks, and Vince Dunn is out. So that means you're going to see Riker Evans and Justin Schultz on the power play, and that's a big downgrade. I don't mind like Shane Wright, Schwartz, Eberle as a filler. Like, they're all basically fillers, you know what I mean? Like, you could play with them if you like them. They have a 3.2 total. I'm not super excited about any of these lines just because they play the same amount of minutes as the other lines. And we had the eclipse yesterday, so we don't even know which line's going to score now. You need the eclipse. You can look at it with your glasses. They say Seattle 3 or whatever. Not the case today. There's just the normal sun out there. It's hard to pinpoint where they're going to score from, so I don't particularly love this game.
Yeah, I don't like this game at all. Beniers, Bjorkstrand, Burakovsky, the triple B line. Can we call that the subprime mortgage line? Like, is that something that we could actually get away with here?
Better Business Bureau?
Yeah. I was just thinking of that scene from The Big Short. As you can tell, I don't have any interest in this game whatsoever. I wrote up Justin Schultz in the picks article. We get to defensemen. Like, he'll probably have to play like 19 minutes. It's a good for Seattle, it's a good power play spot. Arizona's penalty kill is still not very good, but I just don't. I agree with you. This is a game of one-offs for me. One-off Burakovsky, he's on the top power play unit. I think that's fine. One-off, like you said, one-off Dylan Genther, one-off Clayton Keller. Those types of things are fine. I'm not full stacking anything in this game. We can just keep it rolling.
Yeah, we are going to keep it rolling. Calgary, oh my God, this hammer is just disgusting. Calgary Flames with a 3.5 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks somehow have a 2.5 total.
Before
That might be their highest total.
Before you go too much further, we're going to talk about the Calgary lineup. But while we were on the show, we got news that Klim Kostin is going to be back for San Jose. But there are a number of illnesses in the room, so the lineup itself is in question for the Sharks.
I mean, it doesn't really matter. They could put out whatever they want. Every single line is still going to suck. So, like, there's like levels to sucking, and I don't like where this is going. So let's just talk about the Flames. Probably going to be going Kadri, Kuzmenko, Pospisil, and then it is Zari, Mangiapane, Huberdeau, and then Backlund, Coleman, Sharangovich, and then whatever the fourth line is going to be. Like, we're at the point that there is, and the funny thing is, the highest owned projected line on the night isn't even the Flames in this game. It's the Sharks' top line, which is just speaks volumes of how bad the Flames really are. But I don't have a ton of interest in full stacking anything.
Here's the thing: is if Klim Kostin's back, he was on the top line before this illness/injury or whatever, right? So presumably he goes back to the top line, and then Eklund goes back to the third line, the second line, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this game sucks. I want to prioritize if I'm going to play this game. I want to prioritize the Calgary power play. Kadri, Kuzmenko, both on the top power play unit. I think that's where I would go. Do I love it? Absolutely fucking not. But they're cheap enough where it's like, sweet. Like, I can add in Weegar and still have a competent lineup. So that's probably where I go. You want to one-off Sharangovich. I think that's fine. I think almost anything I'm going to do with Calgary is going to involve Mackenzie Weegar. That's one of the trends I've been doing this season. Anytime the team plays the Sharks, their top defensemen still play the ton of minutes. So any power play stack is probably going to involve Kadri, and it's probably going to involve Weegar. And then you're probably going to add Kuzmenko. If you want to add in Sharangovich or Huberdeau, be my guest. But that's probably what I'm going to do on the Calgary side. On the Sharks side, on its best day, I would have minimal interest in the top line at 10.7% projected ownership. But that's just insanity on a 13-game slate. You throw on top of that, Slim Kostin is back. You have sickness in the room. You don't know the lineup. I'm just out on the Sharks.
What I will say about San Jose is that Michael Granlund and Fabian Zetterlund are the most expensive players at their position on the Sharks. And then William Eklund at 3,300 is the second most expensive winger. So if the top line is healthy and Klim Kostin's back, which he's going to be, you can just put him on the top line as a late swap because he's cheaper than Eklund, and it's probably going to be a pretty low-owned combination, right? Like it's not going to be 11% or whatever because you're not going to get confirmation on the lines until warm-up. It's the very last game to lock, and you can swap down from Eklund to Kostin. The problem you'd run into is if we get to warm-ups and all of a sudden Granlund and Zetterlund are sick and are not playing. And then all of a sudden you're playing like a $9,000 Sharks line with $4,000 left on the table. And it's like, did I have to stay up until 11 o'clock to do this? Is this what my life has come to? So I'm with you. I don't have a ton of interest in San Jose. I think it would be interesting to play Zetterlund, Granlund, and Eklund, and then just swap Eklund to Kostin, assuming that's what the line's going to be, which is probably what it's going to be if everybody is healthy. I just don't know if I want to put all my eggs into that one basket with 26 teams on the slate. I'd rather I can't believe it. It's not often we say this, but I'd rather play Calgary. The Calgary Kadri line for me, I wrote up Kadri in the picks article. He's over 19 minutes a game over the last month. A low shooting percentage is kind of killing him, but San Jose is the perfect cure for low shooting percentages. Him and Pospisil have still been fine offensively, even without Zary. 2.5 expected goals, 60 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Kuzmenko even is averaging 2 shots per game in his last 10. So Kuzmenko, Pospisil, Kadri for me in this game. I think the San Jose top line is in play. The problem is if all of a sudden, Michael Granlund is sick and he's not playing, you're leaving over $2,000 on the table and playing Jack Studnicka instead. So, buyer beware.
Please play the Sharks, everybody. Coming up after us, 5 p.m. MLB Live Before Lock with Greg and Matt. 6 p.m. NBA Live Before Lock with Josh and Eric. And then the 7 p.m. the Playback Live Watch Along stream. Let's talk about some defensemen here. Top of the board, Kel McCarr, Roman Josi. They're both over 8K. McCarr's up to 8,700. Then you have Fox, Werenski, Carlson, Dahlian, and Weegar. I think McCarr is a very interesting play here. I'm not saying you have to go out and jam him in, but if you're in a situation where you have that salary available, I think you plug and play him. I think Mackenzie Weegar is in a great spot here. After that, like the top range is kind of, they're fine, but I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to play them. What do you think?
Yeah, Weegar, I'm with you. He's the number one on my board, then McCarr, then Hedman. I think Zach Werenski's an interesting play here. He is putting up a lot of peripherals and getting a lot of minutes. It's just that Zach Werenski's 7,100. I'd rather just play Weegar for 6,700 and choke whatever ownership difference there is. That's just kind of the way it is. Mid-price range, there's a lot of guys. Obviously, Mike Matheson at home against Philly. Brandon Montour at home against Ottawa. Miro Heiskanen at home against Buffalo. Cedar is projecting well for Detroit. Though I did see, is he a game time? Yeah, he's a game time decision tonight, I think, with an illness.
He said he's expected to play. He missed. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, should looks like he should still play, but just something to just watch for. Gustav Forsling for Florida. If you don't want to pay up for Montour, Ekblad and Ekman Larson are both out, so Forsling's going to get some minutes. I think Jonas Brodin for Minnesota makes sense. He's going to have to block a lot of shots here tonight. And Drew Doughty, of course, in a great power play matchup for Los Angeles. Cheaper guys, Radko Gudas might have to block a lot of shots. Speaking of Los Angeles, might have to block a lot of shots on the other side of that game. Already mentioned Justin Schultz running the top power play for Seattle. Matt Roy's under 4K for Los Angeles. I don't mind that. Our boy, the Zub, 3,600 facing Florida. He might have to block a lot of shots here tonight as well. Neil Pionk is also only, I believe, 3,700 on DraftKings. Don't mind him at that price. Sean Walker as well in that price range for Colorado. For the super cheap guys, the board from Seattle with Vince Dunn out. Don't mind Willie Borgen here tonight at 2,900. Same thing for Nico Mikla at 2,800 for Florida with Ekblad and Ekman Larson out. And you mentioned him on the last show, I think. I'll mention him here before you get in. Braid Pashal for, I don't know why I mentioned him, for Vegas. He's not even on the slate here tonight, is he? So
no, but you can play him.
Yeah, I don't even know what I honestly don't know why I have him written down. And it's one of those things I was just on a roll and I got to that name and I was like, well, I'm going to mention it anyway. But 2,500 Simon Edvinsson would be my mid-price punt du jour. No, you can't play Braden Pashal tonight.
I mean, you could, but did you mention Riker Evans? I think he's fine. Down there, it's what
I was thinking. Pashal's in Calgary now. That's why I have him written down. Holy God!
Well, there you go. He was on Calgary.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel breaking down a 26-team slate with 8 days left in the season.
Wait, he is on Calgary.
Yeah, 2,500. He's 2,500. Shillington's not playing tonight.
Right, and so okay, there is someone on Vegas with a very similar name, but anyways, let's get to the goalies. Ottinger, 8,100. I think Dustin Wolf at 8,100 is fine. Igor Shesterkin at 8K. Then you start going down. Like, I don't mind Hellebuck or Saros. Swayman's the guy I had circled at home to Carolina at 7,600. Like, I am perfectly good with that. And then if I'm going to go punt du jour, I think it would be either Jake Allen or Montembeault.
Yeah, I wrote up Jeremy Swayman. I certainly don't mind any goalie against Carolina. Connor Hellebuck, like Clayton mentioned in the chat, Nashville, Winnipeg seems like a good goalie game. I like Connor Hellebuck on the road. Nashville's been creating a ton of shots over the last couple months. Jake Ottinger at home against Buffalo, don't mind that as well. My cheap guys, it's Dostal I think is fine. Like, if the Kings can't do a lot of damage on the power play, he might be fine. And I'll also mention Mackenzie Blackwood. Like, I think it feels like one of Dostal or Blackwood is going to have a good game here tonight. It's just, whoever I pick, it's going to be the wrong one.
Par for the course. It's like trying to pick a Seattle line. Who you like for your hat trick pick?
Running out of games for it to happen. I wrote about him in the picks article. Kind of chalky, but whatever. I'm going with small goals boy, Cole Caulfield.
He's due, man. If he was shooting like 10% this season, he would have like 125 goals. Going Adrian Kempe.
I like it. We like the Kings tonight. So.
Our Kings, yeah. We will be back on Thursday. Short slate tomorrow. We will be back on Thursday. Hopefully, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, we'll be back on Thursday. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for the super chats, the affiliate stuff, and good luck tonight. We'll see you on Thursday.
Good luck tonight, everybody.